by that. Don't be deceived by that, because it's so easy, especially in this day and age, to be a treacherous, treasonous, backstabbing hypocrite. Wait, you have to test them. How do you test them? The Imam says, observe them, look at them. By the way, we're not saying you should be judgmental and kind of paranoid when you see other people. I think the first thing you're supposed to do, I'm supposed to do, is to apply this hadith and the standards laid out in it on myself. Then apply it to other people. Absolutely. Should you also be careful and particular about the people you befriend? Absolutely. One hadith says, لا تتخذوا إخوانا, never take a friend, a brother, a close intimate friend, حتى تختبروهم بخصلتين, until you test them whether or not they have they can check these two boxes. Then the Imam says, وإلا, if they do not check both of these boxes, فَعْزُبْ ثُمَّ عْزُبْ ثُمَّ عْزُبْ, leave them, leave them, leave them. Don't get close to them. Don't say, but oh, he may come in handy. Oh, but she might help me at some other point. The Prophet, it's a prophetic hadith narrated by the Imams as well, is being very clear and unequivocal about this. Leave them, and he says it 3 times. What are these 2 boxes that must be checked? Number 1, على محافظتهم للصلوات في أوقاتها, whether they pray on time every time. And number 2, مداراتهم لإخوانهم, whether they help their brothers and sisters in faith. Or are they completely careless? Do they not care what other people are going through? Starting with their immediate family members, extending outward. If you don't check these 2 boxes, leave them. So let's go back to the hadith of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He says, don't be fooled by someone who's all of a sudden trying to act holy and religious and faithful. You have to test them. Number 1, he says, test them when it comes to money. Oh boy. Boy, oh boy, how many people falter at this test. How many people have such a small, tiny price tag attached to them. They see $1,000, £1,000, and suddenly all their values and morals and principles are down the tubes. Their best friends, they stab them in the back. Couldn't care less about haram, halal, as long as they get that transient passing pleasure from a little bit of extra money. Why? So they could buy the designer clothes and the designer watches and the designer this and the designer that. How these brand names have totally distorted our view of the world around us. So much so that we think unless we have that label, our lives are meaningless. Unless I have something that I can boast about on my wrist and say, oh, this is $2,000 worth, then I'm worthless myself. And this is especially true of sisters, but increasingly more and more with brothers. What's wrong with you? Look at the lives of the Imams, the other. Nobody's saying these are haram, by the way. All I'm saying is that when it comes to crossing that red line of haram and halal, so that I could end up having a little bit more, it's just not worth it. اعلموا أنه ليس لأبدانكم هذه ثمن إلا الجنة. أمير المؤمنين says, these tender, soft bodies of yours have no price that is worth them except paradise. It's just not worth it. Moving on, the Imam says, test them when it comes to money. See how they do. If they pass the test, فَرُوَيْدًا لَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ, slow down, hold on. Don't be fooled just yet. There's more tests you have to subject them to. The Imam then says, you have to test them with nocturnal desires. Test them when it comes to women. Test them when it comes to these pleasures. Because there are people, the Imam says, فَإِنَّ شَهَوَاتِ الدُّنْيَا كَثِيرًا. This world isn't just about money. It's not just about designer clothes. It's not just about brand names. There are other types of pleasures. The Imam then says, there are those who wish they could have these pleasures, but they're too timid. They're too scared. And that's why they will act all holy, because they really can't get their hands on these pleasures. That's hence the need for them to be tested. Hence the need for them to be in a position where they have the motive and means and opportunity so that you can find out whether this person is truly faithful or not. Then the Imams provides more criteria. He says, even if they pass that test, فَرُوَيْدًا لَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ, be careful, don't be deceived just yet. Don't accept them as a friend just yet. He says, you have to look at their intellect and whether they put their desires ahead of their intellect. In other words, their personal interest. Even when it comes to religious projects, religious activities, when they throw a program, for example, even a majlis for Imam Al-Hussain, even when they go to Hajj, even when they do this or that, you have to find out whether, when it comes time to the crunch, when they're pushed into a corner where they have to choose between their name, their interest, their brand, their standing in society, or the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which do they take? Which do they prefer?